The 2XKO Alpha Lab is here, and for many, this will be players' first time sitting down with the highly anticipated title. 2XKO has been in development in some form for years and has seen constant iteration. We had a chance to speak with lead champion designer Alex Jaffe to chat about all the latest changes to the game, as well as the lessons the team has learned while building such an ambitious title.
2XKO has gone through a lot of changes. We've been working on a ton since last year. Much of that is, still under wraps, but there's also so much we have on the floor today. I think the most notable change is the addition of a sixth champion, Braum, who is our big body, heart of gold bruiser, who also has incredible defensive abilities that are there to support his team. But we've also made a big update to Ahri. Ahri is a champion that people love outside of 2XKO and have really loved in our game so far. But we felt like there was a missing opportunity for her. So many people want to play Ahri. She's such an appealing character. And what we had for her was really fun and really deep, but a little hard to get into from the moment you touch the controller. There's kind of some stuff to learn. We used to have a lot of, charges that you had to keep track of. It made her a little less reliable. And so what we did was we really kind of thought carefully about her. Steve Banker, who's the designer for Ahri, took a really, really careful pass thinking about how do we keep all of that depth and all of that fun, but make sure that the moment you start hitting buttons, you're having a good time. One of our design values is short path to fun, endless mastery. We want a game that is amazing for the FGC, that is as wild and exciting and deep as you could possibly hope for, but also is more fun than, most fighting games have had a chance to be for the brand new player, right? We want to bring people in who've never been able to come before. And finding that sweet spot is really hard, but with Ahri, I think we're really proud of some of the changes we made to simplify some of the complexity of her kit, but keep all of the depth. So those are the big changes on the champion side. We also have changes on kind of the core rules of the game. We want very, very spicy mix-ups. We want really, really intense pressure. We want exciting combos. But some of these were turned up to 11 in ways that I think weren't actually contributing as much even to the direct audience we're trying to hit. So for example, we did a very subtle change to basically the way pressure works in the corner. We increased the amount of push that an attack does when you block it in the corner. And this is a small change, but what it does is it means that I can't just hit you repeatedly with normals in the corner when you're blocking and then come in with an assist, tag, keep that pressure up for quite as long. Pressure naturally comes to an end a little earlier, and that kind of actually, I think, is more fun for both players because it's a little less flat, but also tells the attacker it's time to get some serious offense going and actually open the opponent up. We did similarly small reductions to combo length, just at the very high end for some of the characters who were doing annoying loops that weren't even that hard necessarily. We want combos to feel earned. We want them to feel really satisfying, feel really unique. Generally, we're just basically trying to keep all the kind of amped up excitement of the game, but also make sure that there's more counterplay, there's more intentionality, and that the stuff that's powerful is also stuff that's fun for both players. I will tell you, in terms of adapting a champion from League to 2XKO, we spent years trying to figure out how that's really meant to work. For some of the early champions, we were really directly translating some of the way their kit worked. And sometimes that works, but more often than not, we can do something better. And I think with every subsequent champion, we try to find more of what this champion could be, what the core identity of the character is. And so far, we've received really, really good feedback on this front. That said, I think looking at those early champions, we still thought there's probably more we can do to just find whole new aspects of this character that you haven't seen before. With Braum, for example, you end up seeing a character who's much more mobile than what you see in League, because we think that a huge part of the identity of the character, outside of just the League kit, is just how athletic he is, right? You see some of that in League, get behind me. But in this game, he's slow, but he is very, very huge with his movements, right? He's got this huge diving attack from the air. He's got giant swings from the air, really, really far dash attacks. On top of that, we wanted new ways to use his ice, right? Ice is kind of it's sort of a fundamental fantasy within combat and within even fighting games. So we're okay, this guy has to be able to freeze you in a block of ice, right? We have to find a way to get that in there. Cool. The team that was working on Braum worked together really, really hard to find all these new expressions of the fantasy. I love, riding the shield and the opponent all the way to the corner for a full screen corner carry when you have Unbreakable, or slamming the shield down when you have Unbreakable, creating pillars, spires of ice that travel across the floor and then back to knock the opponent back to him. I think it's really just finding all these new expressions of what this character from a narrative and thematic standpoint could do that there just isn't room for in League. I'm sure League designers and artists and so on probably thought about all kinds of stuff like that, but they're constrained in what they can put in the game. And we have the freedom to put, sometimes dozens of moves. Braum has a lot of moves because he has all his whole kit, and then when he's an Unbreakable, he has enhanced versions of many of his moves. So I really love that expansiveness, and that's another thing we've discovered. I think when you give more, not only does it elevate the champion more and expand the fantasy more, but it also just lets players be more expressive, right? It lets players find the stuff that matters to them, that they think is cool, that they think is powerful, and focus on that, and kind of have meaningful debates about like, oh, I think this move is strong, I think that move is strong. You know, we want there to be interesting questions about what's strong, and these kind of expansive kits, I think, really help with that.
Stand with me. Or fall before me.
We are so excited for Alpha Lab. It has been such a long time coming. I think everybody knows this game has been in development for a long time. And when we're making this game, right, it is for the players, it is for the FGC. Every step of the way, everything we do, we think about what players will love. But we haven't really gotten to see yet, right? Coming to EVO last year was such a tremendous moment for us because we got to experience that firsthand. We were so happy with how people responded. But it's really different when you get it at home, right? When people can sit down and they can play the game at home in the comfort of their couch with their friends and, you know, really bang on stuff, figure out what works, figure out what's messed up for them. It's going to be a totally different story. And we know we'll get very different kinds of feedback, you know? I think we'll get a lot more kind of like incisive feedback that cuts to the core of what we're doing. And we are totally ready for it. Like we hope for and expect a mountain of feedback to wade through. We have people on deck just to kind of help us look through that feedback and understand it and parse it and find the patterns. And, you know, us designers and people in art and people in every discipline are going to be looking at that to understand what are we doing right? So what should we lean into? And what are we messing up? The thing that's so exciting about working on this game and being at Riot is that our whole culture is built around working with the players to improve. So I've been telling some of my teammates recently, you know, they'll say like, oh, what if people are going to hate this thing, right? Like, oh, you know, what if they don't like this move on this character? And I'm like, it's okay. Because we get to fix it. Like, we're so privileged. When they give us that feedback, like, we're privileged to get to work with them and learn, because so many players are going to try the game. They know better in some ways about a lot of things than we know, even spending all day on the game. You know, we'll take in that feedback and we'll parse it and, you know, put it through the lens of how we think about the game and what we're trying to do. Not everything that people tell us we're going to actually be changing, right? Because some of it doesn't work with some of our goals or some of our other constraints. But a lot of it is going to tell us, hey, like, we weren't seeing the big picture here in some element of the game, right? Like, I feel amazing when any of these champs succeed, both for the people who worked on them and because I'm involved in the process with all of them. It's always such a hard battle. Like, there are multiple times during the development of every champ where, you know, you have this existential dread or existential doubt, like, is this working? Can we make it work? Like, what is the path from here to amazing? And, you know, people have sleepless nights over this stuff. Like what's missing? Like, is this gonna happen? And the fact that so far, every champ that we've really put our full effort into has gotten this far and come out here and delighted players, it's so satisfying. It tells me that something about our process at least is working and that we have amazing people who do really good stuff. I have seen, myself included, kind of every designer have moments, especially earlier in their career, where they're like, oh man, like, I have the vision, I'm so confident, it's all gonna play out like this, people are gonna love it, and then you try it and the whole thing just falls flat. And that's because I think games, and in particular fighting games, are a really interesting medium where you make the tools, right? You build the Lego bricks, but the players make the experience, right? The way they put those bricks together creates the experience, and you can't control that. So it's not like you're making a movie where you get to just decide what people are gonna see and do and experience. You give it to them, you learn, and sometimes what they end up doing and the aggregate experience of the whole thing does not at all match what the vision you had in your head. And at that point, you basically have three options. One is you can like bury your head in the sand and be like, no, this isn't happening. People just don't get it. That doesn't work. Or you can say, okay, they aren't seeing the vision because the experience that they're having hasn't yet captured it. And I've definitely been through this myself on Champions, where I'm like, people think something isn't working, but it's because there's one missing piece, right? This one move isn't cancelable in a way that will open up all these options. And once we make this cancelable, they'll see that it's really expressive and they'll understand it better. And we make that change, and then people are like, oh, I get it now, right? You communicated to me. The other side of it is you realize that there's something in their feedback that's fundamental to the vision that you're trying to create. And that whatever those small changes you make or that you're planning or you're gonna do, they're not going to make the vision work, because the vision was actually wrong. And being able to distinguish between those two is one of the really, really hard skills of a designer and something we're always working with, right? And so for us, it's really important to articulate that vision really explicitly and understand what are the pieces of the character that are going to contribute to it so that we can then step back, right? We look at our goals and we're like, were these goals wrong? Did we misunderstand something about what the audience wants or how this game plays or what's really resonant for this particular character? And do we have to revisit the entire thing? I did early versions of many of the champions, but over time, other designers took those over. Echo's the only character that remained my baby. And for Echo, you know, in the early days, the core mechanic, it was not clear that it was gonna work. We tried it and people were like, it's not exciting enough, it's too confusing, you know, but I really, in this case, I was pretty sure the vision was right and I kept iterating on it and we got somewhere. But even still, until we came to EVO last year, I didn't know if people would get it. I didn't know if people would see the expressiveness of it or feel like, oh, this really feels like time travel in the right way. There were a lot of questions. But when I see people talking about it and, you know, talking about how much they love the character and how excited they are to like get in the lab and try crazy shit with him, yeah, it never ceases to be like some of the most rewarding and satisfying feelings like ever. I'm so grateful to get to do this job and like coming here and watching the joy on people's faces. I feel like it's such an insane gift to get to create joy for people. You know, I mean, they're doing a lot of the hard work of creating the joy themselves, but we do our part. And yeah, we all just feel so lucky.